I always thought I'd feel it coming. The shift, the fracture, the quiet betrayal. But it was just a Tuesday. Coffee half cold, sun too bright, and something hollow pressed against my ribs like a truth I wasn't ready to name. Funny how silence can sound like a goodbye. I was brushing coffee grounds off the kitchen counter when I saw it. A photo, white dress, vineyard lighting, pastel filter, all over Instagram. My sister Anna, glowing. The caption, "Can't believe it's almost here. #Anna and Jake say I do." Hundreds of likes already. Friends, cousins, even a few of mine chiming in. So excited! The big day's gonna be perfect. But there was no invitation in my mailbox, no text, no call, just that post. At first I thought maybe it was a mistake. Maybe she was doing one of those soft launch announcements. Maybe the invites were coming later. I opened our last text thread. It was from February. I had Venmo'd her for her car repair. Before that, I helped her find the apartment she's living in now. Co-signed even. I stared at the screen for too long. Something brittle cracked inside me. 3 years ago, I drove her across the state for college orientation. Waited in a motel parking lot while she cried in the front seat, afraid to go inside. She hadn't wanted Mom to come. Said I was the only one who didn't make her feel stupid. I bought her first cookware set. Paid for her GRE prep. Sent her money when the landlord tried to evict her for late rent. When she called me at midnight sobbing because her last boyfriend had left, I left work early the next morning just to take her out for pancakes. And now, a wedding. My sister's wedding. I find out through a filter and a hashtag. The longer I looked at that photo, the more the room tilted. The kind of tilt that makes your hands go cold and your throat tighten, like your body knows something before your mind does. I called her. She picked up on the third ring. "Oh," she said. Hey, I said. "Saw your post." Silence. "I didn't know you set the date." More silence. Then carefully, "Yeah, we decided to keep it kind of intimate." "Intimate," I repeated. I waited, but she didn't explain. "I'm not invited." "It's not about you," she said quickly, as if she'd practiced it. "It's just, this isn't your role." There it was. That phrase, like a sentence passed down by someone who never saw me bleed for her. "Not your role." I didn't argue. I just said, "Okay," and hung up. I booked the flight that night. It wasn't impulsive. It was surgical. I chose somewhere expensive, distant, blue. The kind of blue that doesn't ask you questions, just lets you dissolve into it. I picked a boutique hotel with white stone walls and a terrace that faced the ocean. I ordered champagne before I even packed. The suitcase was old, the kind you keep even though the zipper always sticks. I packed light. Shorts, linen shirts, sunglasses. Nothing heavy, nothing that reminded me of family. The day of her wedding, I checked my phone at the airport lounge. Missed calls, 23 messages, group chats, Mom, Aunt Linda, Jake's cousin. Something had happened. Rumors. "Call me. She needs you." "Where are you?" I didn't reply. By the time I landed, there were photos of the empty altar, a blurry picture of Jake's back as he walked out, a caption someone else had written. He left. No one knows why. On the terrace, with the sea humming in the background, I poured myself a glass of champagne. My phone buzzed again. I turned it over and set it face down. Then I opened the settings and switched on airplane mode. The silence was immediate and full. I raised the glass. Not in a toast, more like a quiet acknowledgement, to the man I was expected to be. The rescuer, the fixer, the spare backbone, the role, gone. There was no speech, no dramatic goodbye. I just didn't answer the door this time. And for the first time in years, the choice was mine. The hotel lobby smelled like lemon and money. Not the overbearing kind you get in chain resorts, but that subtle, expensive quiet that says, no one here is running from anything, except maybe themselves. I checked in without giving my real last name, just in case. My room was all soft whites and blue glass, the kind of place where the bed sheets feel too clean for your thoughts. I dropped my bag, peeled off my shoes, and walked straight out to the balcony. The ocean looked indifferent, not peaceful, not angry, just eternal, the way family pretends to be. It wasn't until the second glass of wine that I let myself feel it. Not anger, not betrayal exactly, but that dull, aching clarity. Like finally realizing the house you've been rebuilding for years was never yours to begin with. You were just patching up the walls so someone else could feel safe. That night, I didn't check my phone. Instead, I thought about the day I co-signed Anna's first lease. She'd been crying then, too. Her ex had cleaned out their joint account, and Mom was too disappointed to help. I was already behind on my own mortgage, but I drove 3 hours, met the landlord in a subway parking lot, and signed the papers with my own credit on the line. She hugged me, told me I was the only real one left in this family. I should have known then. The signs were small but sharp. Mom fawning over Jake after 5 minutes of knowing him. Anna laughing a little too loudly when I brought up the scholarship I'd turned down to take care of Dad during his chemo. The way she stopped introducing me at her parties. This is my brother turned into. He just came by to help set up. Gradually, I went from being the guy she called in emergencies to the guy who was only ever in the way, and I let it happen. Because that's what you do when you're the strong one. You pick up the pieces, smile through the slights, and tell yourself loyalty means staying, even when no one notices you're bleeding under the weight. The next morning, I woke up to 78 unread messages, group chats, missed calls, even a voice memo from Mom, something she never sends unless someone's died or she wants to guilt me into Thanksgiving. I didn't press play. Instead, I booked a massage, ordered room service, walked the shoreline until the salt water numbed my feet and the sun burned the memory of her dress out of my eyes. Let them scramble. Let them piece together excuses, spin new myths, cast new villains. I was done being the one who stayed behind to clean up. From now on, they could face the aftermath without me. She called me selfish once. Anna, I mean. It was after I told her I couldn't drive across state lines at midnight to pick her up from a party she'd gone to without telling anyone. Her phone was dying. She was crying. Jake hadn't shown up. "You're all I have," she said, voice cracking. But that wasn't true. I wasn't all she had. I was just the only one who said yes. Saying yes became my currency in that family. Yes to watching the dog. Yes to covering rent. Yes to pretending Mom didn't whisper about me when she thought I couldn't hear. They took my yes as fact, not favor. Funny how people grow entitled to your sacrifice when you offer it freely. I remember when I first noticed the shift with Anna and Jake. We were all at Mom's for a cookout. I just finished fixing the sink, a sink that had been leaking for months, and when I walked outside, Anna was showing off the ring. Everyone gathered around. Glasses clinked. Dad muttered something about it being her turn to be happy. No one looked for me. No one noticed I wasn't in the photo. After that, it got quieter. I stopped being looped into planning threads. When I asked if she needed help with anything, Anna smiled and said, "We've got it covered." I told myself it was fine. She was growing up, starting a life, standing on her own, but even then something didn't sit right. The distance wasn't organic. It was carved out, deliberate. I called her one night, asked directly if I'd done something. She laughed. "You're reading too much into things. Everything's fine." She always used that tone when she was lying. And now? Now her voice was in my voicemail, crying over something broken that had nothing to do with me, but suddenly, everything to do with me again. I sat at the hotel bar that evening, watching the surf through glass. The bartender was quiet, efficient, poured my drink without asking for a name. Somewhere between the second and third sip, I realized this wasn't the first time she'd cut me out. It was just the first time she'd made it official. The wedding wasn't an oversight. It was a message. You're only useful when we need saving. Otherwise, stay invisible. And so I did. I let them spiral. Let the silence become its own kind of answer. For once, I wasn't going to rush in to fix it. Not the wedding. Not her heartbreak. Not the family's scrambled attempt to glue their favorite fairy tale back together. She had made her choice. And now, so had I. The thing about being the fixer, about always showing up, is that people forget you have a door too, one they can be locked out of. I took a late swim that evening, just as the sky started turning that soft, aching shade of pink. The pool was empty. Everyone else was at dinner, clinking forks and rehearsing happiness. I let the water close over my head and stayed there, still, weightless. Like if I didn't move, the past couldn't find me. When I came up, the air was cooler, sharper. Back in the room, I dried off, poured another glass of wine, and finally checked my phone. One message stood out, just her name, Anna. No profile photo, no preview. Just a blinking reminder that she still knew how to reach me. I opened it. "I don't know why you're ignoring me. I need you. Please call me." 12 words. No apology. No explanation. Just a tug on the same old thread. I put the phone down. I knew what she wanted. What they all wanted. Someone to blame for Jake disappearing. Someone to piece together the narrative and soften the fallout. If I answered now, I'd be back in the role they'd written for me. Unpaid labor in a play I didn't audition for. I went back to the balcony. The wind had picked up, salty and unbothered. Lights from the other balconies glowed like small private lives, each one sealed behind glass. When we were kids, Anna used to follow me everywhere. She'd sit outside my room and talk through the door for hours. About school, about fears, about how she thought Dad secretly liked me better. I used to let her in, every time. And now, years later, she'd locked me out of the biggest day of her life. Not a single seat, not a placeholder, nothing. Except now, when it all fell apart, now she remembers the door. The thing is, I still love her. That's the worst part. This love, it's not the movie kind. Not sweet, not forgiving. It's gritty, tired, the kind that aches when it's not returned. But I'm learning something out here, in this stillness. Love doesn't mean forfeiting yourself. Love doesn't mean becoming the scaffold someone kicks down once the house is built. And if she never learns that, well, that's not my emergency to answer anymore. By the 5th day, I stopped checking the time. No calendar reminders, no emails. My phone sat face down on the dresser like a sealed vault. The only notifications I allowed were the waves outside and the occasional knock from room service. I didn't ask what had happened at the wedding. I didn't need to. People don't just vanish from an altar unless something ugly rises up behind the curtain. My gut told me it was Jake, or maybe it was Anna. Maybe someone finally said the quiet part out loud. Either way, I wasn't there to catch her. And for once, that was the point. In the early afternoon, I wandered into town. Cobblestone streets, shaded storefronts, the kind of boutique shops that sell linen shirts with no tags and soaps that smell like nostalgia. I bought a leather journal. Not to write in, just to hold. Something about the weight of it felt grounding, real. I sat by the harbor with a coffee, watching boats come and go, all of them heading somewhere, all of them leaving something behind. There was an older couple on the bench beside me. They sat without speaking, just watching the tide roll in. She leaned against him like she'd been doing it for decades. He blinked slowly, hand resting on hers. No performance, no drama, just presence. I wondered what it would have felt like to have that kind of quiet love in our family. One that didn't hinge on crisis or guilt or favors. One that didn't need constant proving. When I got back to the hotel, the front desk handed me a note. Plain paper. No envelope. Please pick up. We're scared. She's not okay. Mom. 5 words underlined. She's not okay. It was her tell. A veiled order dressed as concern. I'd seen it before. After her first panic attack. After Anna's high school suspension. After Dad collapsed on the porch that one summer. The code was always the same. Drop everything. Come home. Be the spine. But here's what she never understood. Being the spine means holding up people who never stop leaning. Eventually, your back breaks. I went to the hotel bar that night and ordered something expensive without asking the price. The bartender looked at me the way people do when they sense you're not running from something, but walking away for the last time. I smiled and nodded toward the sea. Let it all drift, I said. He didn't ask what it was. He didn't have to. I used to think silence was absence. That if no one called, no one cared. Now I understand. Silence can be a boundary, a decision. A line in the sand that says, not this time. I didn't return Mom's message. Instead, I woke early and walked barefoot along the shoreline, the sand cool and undisturbed. Gulls circled overhead like slow, suspicious thoughts. The ocean moved with a kind of lazy certainty, each wave folding over the last, dragging the past out with it grain by grain. Somewhere far off, a fisherman's boat buzzed faintly against the morning calm. Everything felt undeservedly peaceful. But that's the thing about peace. It doesn't wait for your guilt to subside. It just arrives, quietly, and sits beside you, whether you think you've earned it or not. Back in my room, the messages had doubled. A voicemail from Aunt Marcy, her voice lined with false concern. Whatever's going on, I'm sure it's not as bad as it seems. She needs you. You're her big brother, for God's sake. A text from Anna's best friend. She's not talking to anyone but your mom. She's spiraling. This isn't like her. A photo from a cousin I hadn't spoken to in years. It was a screenshot of Anna, curled on the floor of Mom's kitchen, mascara streaked, barefoot, arms wrapped around her knees like the same scared girl who used to sneak into my room during thunderstorms. The caption said, "She's not eating. Keeps asking for you." I stared at it too long, not because it shocked me, but because I didn't feel what I was supposed to. No panic, no instinct to drop everything, just a quiet, almost clinical distance. The urge to respond flickered like a phantom limb, trained by years of being the one who showed up no matter the hour, the reason, the damage. But I didn't, because I remembered another kitchen, years ago, when I was the one on that floor, grieving Dad alone, shaking from days without sleep, bills piling up on the counter. Anna had left mid-sentence to meet Jake for sushi. "You'll be okay," she'd said. "You always are." And she was right. I was. I learned to be, because no one else came. Now they wanted me to be the salve again, the shoulder, the cleanup crew. Not because they saw me, but because they saw a solution in my skin, a soft place to throw the weight of their regret. But healing is not a performance you can assign to someone else. They didn't want me. They wanted what I could absorb. They wanted my forgiveness to erase the discomfort of their choices. So I poured myself a drink, something dark, strong. Let the glass sit heavy in my palm as the light shifted through the curtains. I raised it to the reflection in the window. Tired eyes, sun-creased skin, and a new kind of quiet behind them. Here's to being the villain in their story, I muttered. Finally, because sometimes peace doesn't come from understanding. It comes from detachment. From accepting that not every fire needs to be extinguished. Some just need to be left to burn. And sometimes, freedom starts with not picking up the phone. It was a Tuesday when I finally answered the phone. Not for Anna, not for Mom, for me. A hotel clerk had slipped a note under my door earlier that morning, something about a package. No sender, no return address. Just a small padded envelope with my name in stiff handwriting. Inside was the wedding invitation, the original one. Heavy cardstock, cream with gold lettering, embossed details. The kind you hold with 2 hands because it feels too formal to touch casually. My name was written in but faint. Pencil, not ink. As if someone had planned to include me and changed their mind last minute. The RSVP line was blank. I turned it over. Nothing on the back. No note. No explanation. Just that one brutal symbol. An invitation that had been almost real. I laughed. Not the bitter kind. Something quieter. The sound of an old bruise being pressed, and realizing it doesn't hurt anymore. Later that day, I picked up when the hotel phone rang. "Hi, this is Noah," the voice said. My cousin. He paused. "I know you're probably done with all of us. I get it, but I thought you should hear this from someone who's not trying to guilt you." I didn't say anything. He went on carefully. "Jake didn't just get cold feet. He found the text messages." Silence stretched. "Anna was texting someone else," he added. "For months, apparently. Some guy she knew in college. Emotional, but not just that." I closed my eyes. She told Mom it was nothing. But Jake found one where she said she wished she'd run away with him, that she felt trapped. She tried to deny it, then tried to spin it. But he was gone before she finished her second lie. I opened my eyes. The ocean was still out there, still unbothered. "Everyone's freaking out," Noah said, trying to hold it together. "But Anna's been blaming you. Says if you'd been there, you could have talked her down." I almost smiled. There it was again. That illusion, that my presence alone could rewrite someone else's choices. "I just thought you should know," he finished. "Not because I expect anything, just so you have the truth." "Thanks," I said, "for the call." After I hung up, I sat on the balcony with the invitation beside me. Let the sea breeze curl its corners. No drama, no rage, just the slow undoing of paper and illusion. This wasn't about Jake, or even the wedding. It was about a story they'd always told themselves, that I was the one who kept the family from falling apart. They never realized I was the only one quietly holding the glue, and I'd finally put it down. The invitation stayed on the balcony table for 2 days. I didn't throw it away, didn't tuck it into a drawer or tear it up dramatically like some cinematic declaration. I just let it sit, let the wind lift its corners, let a little sun bleach the edge. It became less a message and more a relic of a version of me that no longer existed. On the third morning, the cleaning staff must have taken it with the breakfast tray. I didn't ask. I went into town again, this time without my sunglasses. Let the sun hit my face. Stood in line at the cafe behind a couple arguing about whether to rent mopeds or bikes. I smiled for no reason. Not forced, not performative. Just the quiet kind of smile that comes when you realize you're not waiting for the next apology anymore. In the background of everything, my phone kept buzzing. Mom, again, she's a mess. You could still help. This isn't how we fix things. That last one stuck with me. Fix things. It was always about fixing, never feeling. When Dad died, I remember Anna refusing to cry at the funeral. Mom praised her for being so strong. Meanwhile, I sobbed through my eulogy, barely able to finish. Later in the car, Mom told me I should have held it together better, for Anna. That's when the role was cemented. Anna got softness, indulgence, forgiveness. I got expectations. I was supposed to be the anchor, even if it drowned me. And the irony is, they called that love. But what they loved was the way I bent, the way I swallowed my needs whole and smiled through it, the way I always made space for their chaos, never demanding they make room for mine. I was a container, not a son, not a brother, just capacity. I thought of all the things I didn't say over the years, the moments I let slide, the birthdays I spent alone, the way I used to rehearse gratitude just to make their affection feel deserved. If love meant disappearing in order to be worthy of it, maybe it wasn't love at all. That evening, I walked the beach again. There was a group lighting paper lanterns nearby, the kind that float up like quiet prayers. One caught the wind and drifted off course, wobbling above the surf. I watched until it vanished into the dark. No one chased it. Back at the hotel, I sat by the window and opened my notes app. Wrote exactly 6 words. I am not your redemption arc. I didn't send it. Didn't even attach a name. But writing it felt like exhaling something I'd been choking on for years. Anna didn't need a brother that night. She needed an excuse. And I, finally, quietly, proudly, refused to be one. The next morning, I booked a sailing tour. Something slow, indulgent, meaningless in the best way. A half-day loop around the coastline with drinks and small talk and sun-warmed silence. The kind of thing I used to roll my eyes at. Too idle. Too detached from purpose. But that day, I needed to not be anyone's anything. There were 8 of us on board. No one knew me. No one cared what I did, who I had or hadn't forgiven, who might be waiting for me to come back and patch their lives together. It felt like breathing for the first time without someone else's grief fogging the air. We drifted past cliffs where the water turned a deeper kind of blue, like ink dropped into glass. A couple from Chicago asked if I was traveling for work. I said no, and left it at that. They didn't pry. At one point, the guide pointed to a cluster of jagged rocks jutting out of the sea. Locals called them the backbones, she said, because of the way they held shape even under waves. Ancient, unmoving, always partially submerged, but never gone. I stared at them for a long time. We talk about strength like it's about staying, but sometimes strength is the exact opposite, letting go, leaving the place that kept you twisted and pretending it was love, admitting that loyalty, without reciprocity, is just slow self-erasure. I hadn't planned on staying this long. The original trip was 3 nights. I was on day 7. I didn't rebook my return flight. Instead, I made a list. Short, clean, sleep until I wake up naturally, order something I've never tasted, swim without counting the minutes, send nothing back, say no without apology. Later that night, I poured myself a drink on the terrace. The sky was clear, stars sharp and scattered, like they'd been punched through black velvet. My phone sat beside me, still on airplane mode. There were probably hundreds of messages by now, apologies layered on guilt, outrage pretending to be concern. Maybe even 1 or 2 genuine attempts at understanding. But I didn't need to read any of them to know what they said. I'd memorized that script years ago. We didn't mean it. You misunderstood. She needs you. Family is complicated. They always use that word, complicated, as if it softens the cruelty. As if rewriting the past with nicer adjectives somehow rewires your nervous system. This time, the only voice I needed to hear was the one inside me, finally unburdened. It didn't say forgive. It didn't say go back. It said continue. So I did. I left the hotel at sunrise. No dramatic send-off, no note at the desk. Just one last quiet look at the sea through the glass before I zipped my suitcase and pulled the door shut behind me. The hallway echoed faintly with the sound of the cleaning cart down the corridor. I took the elevator alone. The lobby was half lit, just beginning to stir. A woman in a linen dress yawned behind the reception desk, glanced up and nodded without recognition. Perfect. The cab driver didn't speak much English, which suited me fine. I sat in the back seat, window cracked, breathing in that salt-sweet morning air like it might fill whatever space had hollowed out inside me. At the airport, I bought a paperback I had no intention of finishing. Picked up coffee I didn't drink. walked slowly through duty-free like I had all the time in the world, and maybe I did. When the gate attendant scanned my boarding pass, I hesitated for half a second, not out of doubt, but awareness. Stepping on that plane meant something permanent now, not because of geography, but because of choice. I was flying home, but not back. Back implies a return, a rewind, a re-entry into the orbit I'd finally escaped. No, that version of home, the one built on conditional love, unspoken debts, and emotional bookkeeping, no longer existed. It took me a while to understand that you can miss people and still not want them in your life. That grief and relief can live in the same breath. Somewhere over the clouds, I scrolled through my phone. No airplane mode this time. I let the notifications flood in. Texts, voicemails, missed calls. But I didn't open a single one. Instead, I deleted the family group chat, unsubscribed from the guilt, archived every thread where my name was only summoned in crisis. I even blocked Anna, not out of hate, but necessity. I couldn't leave the door cracked. Not this time, because some people don't knock. They just walk in with their damage and call it history. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel sad. Just clear. And sometimes clarity is the closest thing we get to peace. I landed late. Cool air. Quiet sky. The city still half asleep. The roads slick with drizzle. A few people waited for their rides in silence, blinking at phone screens, fumbling with jackets. I took a cab to my apartment and stepped into a space that felt smaller, but more honest. Everything I owned was right where I'd left it. No surprises, no expectations, just stillness. I didn't unpack. I didn't turn on the lights. I left the suitcase by the door, walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, sat on the floor like I used to in college, back against the fridge, knees pulled close, and I breathed. Not because I was finally free, but because I had freed myself. No one was coming to apologize. No one was coming to make it right, and I didn't need them to. I wasn't waiting anymore. Not for closure, not for understanding, not for some reckoning that would wrap all this up in a clean emotional arc. Forgiveness wasn't the ending. Choosing myself was. And that finally was enough.